Bad idea detected. Welcome to Dumbora.
Apparently, for some people, avoiding work required more creativity than actually doing it. 1. In 1978, a Chicago office worker named Gerald decided the greatest threat to his well-being wasn't inflation, layoffs, or disco. It was stapling. Gerald claimed repetitive stapler use caused severe emotional fatigue, which sounds fake until you realize this man weaponized paperwork avoidance like a Navy SEAL. Every morning, he'd arrive, stare at a stack of reports, sigh like a Victorian widow, then wander the office asking if anyone had seen his ergonomic staple remover. He stretched this scavenger hunt into a 3-hour production involving maintenance, HR, and once, allegedly, building security. When his boss finally bought him a brand new electric stapler, Gerald escalated by insisting the machine's noise triggered administrative anxiety. By year's end, management reassigned all stapling duties to interns just to preserve morale. Gerald didn't beat the system. He turned office supplies into a protected class. Somewhere, laziness got its first union representative. 2. In the glorious golden age of corporate America, one man in Ohio faked an allergy to Mondays. Not work, Monday specifically. Carl, a mid-level insurance adjuster with the motivational energy of damp toast, informed HR that the psychological density of Monday caused migraines, nausea, and temporary hostility toward fax machines. This lunatic actually got a doctor's note, likely from someone equally tired of Mondays, recommending a 4-day work week for calendar-induced distress. For 6 months, Carl strutted into the office every Tuesday like a war hero returning from battle, while co-workers spent Mondays drowning in memos and stale break room donuts. Management tried shifting his workload, but Carl argued Tuesday was his recovery period, so heavy tasks were medically irresponsible. Eventually, his condition mysteriously vanished when the company announced Friday performance reviews. Turns out his illness wasn't calendar-based. It was accountability intolerance. Garfield would have called him an amateur. 3. In 1995, a British parking attendant named Nigel decided that standing outside in bad weather was a human rights violation, which, to be fair, rain does feel personal in England. Rather than quit, Nigel developed a masterpiece of strategic incompetence. Every time dark clouds appeared, he'd report severe whistle malfunction, claiming moisture compromised his authority. Without his whistle, he insisted, traffic enforcement would descend into anarchy. Supervisors, somehow treating this like NATO protocol, repeatedly sent him home for safety reasons. Soon, Nigel was monitoring weather forecasts like a Wall Street trader, calling in pre-whistle failure before storms even arrived. Light drizzle? Unsafe. Humidity? Potential whistle slippage. Fog. Psychological hazard. By winter, this man had essentially transformed meteorology into paid leave. His co-workers worked through sleet while Nigel sat at home sipping tea, praying for thunderstorms. He didn't dodge work. He outsourced responsibility to the climate. 4. In suburban Michigan, a factory employee named Denise discovered the ultimate productivity loophole: voluntary committee work. Denise realized that actual labor involved machines, deadlines, and effort, while committees involved muffins, clipboards, and phrases like ongoing dialogue. She joined every optional workplace initiative available: safety committee, birthday committee, holiday decoration committee, even a suspiciously vague future planning council. Soon, Denise spent her days power walking between conference rooms carrying binders no one opened. She became so aggressively involved in workplace culture that management assumed she was essential, despite producing absolutely nothing measurable. While others assembled products, Denise debated bulletin board themes and proper cupcake allocation for retirement parties. Her greatest triumph came when she chaired a 3-week subcommittee investigating whether Casual Friday should include denim. By the time leadership realized Denise had contributed more balloons than output, she'd built a bureaucratic fortress of laminated agendas. She didn't avoid work. She replaced it with meetings, which somehow is even more American. 5. In 2003, a call center employee in Arizona discovered that technology, when paired with audacity, could become performance art. Trevor hated answering customer complaints so profoundly that he programmed his phone system to randomly disconnect calls after exactly 43 seconds. Why 43? Long enough to sound sincere, short enough to avoid solutions. Customers would begin explaining missing packages, billing disasters, or emotional collapse, only for Trevor's line to vanish like a magician fleeing child support. His supervisors initially blamed software glitches, then solar interference, then regional telecom anomalies, because apparently nobody wanted to admit Trevor was running customer service like a prank show. For months, he maintained an Oscar-worthy performance of concern, often saying, "I'm so sorry, we seem to be having technical..." Click. He was eventually caught when IT discovered his custom script labeled nope.exe. Trevor didn't just avoid work, he turned telecommunications into tactical evasion. 6. In 1987, a regional sales manager in Dallas named Ron discovered that nothing kills productivity faster than motivational seminars, unless you're the one giving them. Ron hated sales calls with the passion most people reserve for airline food and IRS envelopes, so he reinvented himself as an internal performance visionary. Instead of selling copiers, Ron spent weeks organizing seminars with titles like Synergize Your Hustle and Closing Deals Through Personal Denim Confidence. He'd wheel out overhead projectors, quote Lee Iacocca like scripture, and force exhausted co-workers into trust falls beside vending machines. The beauty was genius-level laziness. While everyone else chased clients, Ron stood in conference rooms drawing meaningless arrows on flip charts and calling it leadership. His seminars became so frequent that entire sales quarters vanished into beige hotel meeting spaces and stale coffee. Corporate eventually promoted him, because nobody understood what he did, but it sounded expensive. Ron didn't escape work. He transformed avoiding it into middle management, the natural habitat of the professionally unavailable. 7. In 1992, a New Jersey DMV employee named Sandra realized America's slowest institution could actually go slower. Sandra mastered the sacred bureaucratic art of form clarification. Whenever a customer approached her window, she'd inspect their paperwork like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls, squint dramatically, then reject it over microscopic nonsense. Wrong ink shade, signature too confident, staple angle emotionally aggressive. Entire mornings disappeared because Sandra claimed a misplaced checkmark threatened the Republic. People who entered hopeful left, looking like Vietnam veterans clutching manila folders. Her co-workers processed licenses. Sandra processed despair. She once sent a man home because his proof of address used street instead of street. By retirement, she'd probably delayed enough citizens to alter state demographics. The DMV already moved like a sloth on NyQuil, but Sandra made it feel like a Ken Burns documentary about paperwork. She didn't avoid work. She made sure nobody else completed theirs either. 8. In suburban California during the late 90s .com boom, one office employee discovered that fake computer problems were the white-collar equivalent of diplomatic immunity. Kevin, who understood exactly enough about computers to be dangerous, would slam his monitor, mutter "system conflict," and announce catastrophic technical failures whenever deadlines approached. Excel froze? Entire afternoon gone. Printer jam? Emotional recovery period. Screensaver activated? Potential network breach. This man treated Windows 95 like it was Chernobyl with a mousepad. IT staff eventually dreaded his desk like a haunted house, only to discover unplugged cords, switched off monitors, or once, a floppy disk inserted upside down. Kevin's masterpiece came when he blamed internet overload for not finishing reports, as though AOL dial-up was a biblical plague. Management tiptoed around him because technology scared them more than Kevin did. For 3 years, he weaponized America's collective fear of computers into a full-time excuse. Bill Gates built an empire. Kevin used it to dodge spreadsheets. 9. In 1984, a Florida hotel desk clerk named Marlene realized workplace injuries didn't need to be physical if you had imagination and a workers' comp hotline. Marlene claimed her polyester uniform caused acute fabric-related exhaustion, which sounds less like medicine and more like a rejected Sears catalog complaint. She insisted synthetic fibers disrupted her hospitality energy field, leading to dizziness whenever tourists asked for extra towels. Doctors were confused. HR was confused. But Marlene remained committed, dramatically clutching her name tag like it was radioactive every time her shift began. She demanded breathable alternatives, eventually forcing management into months of uniform redesign meetings over a front desk blouse. While coworkers checked in guests, Marlene sat in administrative offices discussing cotton blends like she was negotiating nuclear disarmament. By the time the new uniforms arrived, she'd transferred departments entirely. She didn't just avoid work, she turned pantsuits into a civil rights movement. 10. In 2001, a warehouse employee in Ohio named Doug discovered the ultimate blue-collar invisibility cloak, forklift certification. Most people saw operating heavy machinery as responsibility. Doug saw it as an all-access pass to strategic disappearance. Once certified, he spent entire shifts slowly transporting single boxes across massive warehouses like some majestic, underachieving king of logistics. Need a pallet moved 20 feet? Doug stretched it into a 90-minute odyssey involving safety checks, route analysis, and what he called load mindfulness. Coworkers sweated through assembly quotas while Doug cruised around at lawnmower speed, nodding seriously like he was defusing bombs. Supervisors hesitated to question him because forklifts looked complicated, and nobody wanted OSHA appearing over Carl from shipping. Asking too many questions. Doug understood something beautiful. If you wear a hard hat and look mildly concerned, America assumes you're busy. He didn't avoid work. He put it on hydraulic lifts and drove it in circles. 11. In 1976, an office accountant in Boston named Linda found a loophole so elegant it belonged in the Smithsonian: cigarette breaks. Linda didn't smoke, had never smoked, and reportedly coughed near barbecue grills. But that didn't stop her from taking 12 smoke breaks a day because apparently nicotine had become a labor law. She'd stroll outside with Virginia Slims she never lit, standing near actual smokers discussing weather, inflation, and disco's collapse while everyone else balanced ledgers indoors. She became so committed to the charade that she practiced holding cigarettes like a woman auditioning for a noir film. When questioned, Linda argued that secondhand participation was still spiritually restorative. Her coworkers got carpal tunnel. Linda got fresh air and gossip. By Christmas, she'd spent more paid hours outdoors than some park rangers. Somewhere between Marlboro culture and office policy, Linda found freedom. She didn't inhale. She just exhaled responsibility. 12. In 1998, a big box retail employee in suburban Atlanta discovered that nothing says, "Do not assign me anything," quite like overcommitting to customer service theater. Todd volunteered to help every shopper with impossible questions. VCR rewiring, patio furniture philosophy, battery existentialism. Need directions to light bulbs? Todd was gone 45 minutes. Asked about lawn chairs? Suddenly he was demonstrating lumbar support like a late-night infomercial host. Managers initially praised his dedication, until they realized Todd had somehow avoided stocking shelves for 6 straight months by turning every customer interaction into a PBS special. He once spent an hour explaining fax machines to a confused retiree, while 3 pallets of merchandise sat untouched behind him like abandoned pioneers. Todd understood the sacred retail truth of the pre-Amazon era. If you look helpful enough, nobody notices you're accomplishing absolutely nothing. He didn't avoid work. He hid inside customer enthusiasm like a khaki-wearing magician. 13. In 1989, a municipal employee in Phoenix named Gary discovered the most beautiful phrase in government-funded English: awaiting authorization. Gary worked in city maintenance, which technically meant fixing public property, but spiritually meant standing near orange cones while holding a clipboard like it contained state secrets. Whenever assigned actual repairs, potholes, broken benches, rogue sprinklers, Gary would arrive, inspect the scene with the gravity of a NASA launch director, then announce the project required further departmental authorization. No one knew what department. No one knew what authorization. But Gary said it with enough confidence that supervisors backed away like raccoons near fireworks. Entire sidewalks crumbled while Gary requested additional forms, permit reviews, or occasionally weather-adjacent approval. He once delayed replacing a stop sign for 3 weeks because wind direction felt procedurally unclear. Citizens complained, taxes flowed, and Gary remained gloriously unavailable. He didn't fix infrastructure. He converted bureaucracy into an invisibility shield so powerful it could have hidden Jimmy Hoffa. 14. In 1994, a chain restaurant server in Missouri named Brenda realized the fastest way to avoid side work wasn't rebellion. It was weaponized flair. While coworkers rolled silverware and wiped ketchup bottles, Brenda transformed every basic customer interaction into a full-scale Broadway audition. Birthday table? She wasn't singing. She was producing a Vegas residency. Senior discount request? Suddenly it required menu dissertations, historical context, and detailed pie analysis. She upsold appetizers like a televangelist selling salvation. Managers couldn't pull her off the floor because technically she was driving guest engagement, which sounds suspiciously like avoiding the industrial dishwasher. Brenda once spent 40 minutes helping a family choose between soup and salad, while 3 bus tubs behind her looked like post-war wreckage. Customers loved her. Co-workers hated her. Corporate probably studied her. In the sacred ecosystem of chain dining, Brenda discovered that if you entertain loudly enough, nobody asks why you've never refilled the ranch station. She didn't dodge work, she jazz-handed her way around it. 15. In 1977, a warehouse clerk in Detroit named Leonard exploited America's industrial golden age with one miraculous object, the carbon copy form. Leonard understood paperwork the way magicians understand misdirection. Every task became an avalanche of duplicate forms, triplicate forms, routing slips, verification memos, and inventory discrepancy acknowledgement sheets. Need one box moved? Leonard generated enough paperwork to resemble a Senate investigation. Supervisors assumed a man buried in forms must be essential, when in reality, Leonard had transformed basic logistics into administrative performance art. He spent entire mornings aligning papers, stamping boxes, and muttering about documentation integrity, while forklifts sat idle and shipments aged like bourbon. Once, he delayed a shipment of ceiling fans for 8 days because page 4 lacked a secondary staple. By the Reagan era, Leonard had effectively built a paper fortress around himself, so dense no actual labor could penetrate it. He didn't work hard. He just made bureaucracy look exhausting enough to count. 16. In suburban Seattle during the early 2000s, a software tester named Melissa discovered that corporate America's fear of jargon was stronger than any work ethic. Melissa mastered the dark art of saying absolutely nothing in aggressively technical language. Missed deadline? We're recalibrating deliverable architecture. Forgot assignment? I'm navigating asynchronous workflow variables. Didn't open the email? That initiative remains in strategic buffering. Her bosses, all equally terrified of sounding outdated in the .com era, nodded solemnly instead of admitting they had no earthly idea what she meant. Melissa spent entire meetings discussing optimization bandwidth while accomplishing less than a broken fax machine. She once bought herself 3 weeks on a project by claiming the software needed cross-platform philosophical cohesion. Nobody questioned it because that sounded expensive. By 2004, Melissa had become a corporate cryptid, always present, never productive, sustained entirely by buzzwords and PowerPoint transitions. She didn't avoid work. She Silicon Valleyed it into another dimension. 17. In 1982, a department store security guard in New Jersey named Frank realized vigilance was optional if you embraced theater. Frank treated every minor inconvenience like an active hostage crisis. Shoplifting suspicion, lockdown, misplaced mannequin, perimeter sweep, kid crying near housewares, potential diversion tactic. His genius wasn't laziness. It was overreaction so dramatic that management kept him far away from mundane tasks like inventory checks. Frank once spent 2 hours investigating a suspicious package that turned out to be a Cabbage Patch Kid. Another time, he closed an escalator because someone reported mechanical sadness. While coworkers handled actual responsibilities, Frank strutted through JCPenney with a walkie-talkie the size of a brick, narrating imaginary tactical updates like he was defending the Pentagon from bath towel thieves. Nobody asked him to fold sweaters, because frankly, nobody wanted him escalating khakis into martial law. Frank didn't skip work. He converted retail into an action movie no one requested. 18. In 1997, an office temp in Minneapolis named Cheryl uncovered one of cubicle culture's greatest loopholes: birthday logistics. Cheryl volunteered to organize every office celebration, retirement cake, potluck, and sheet cake. Related emergency with the strategic brilliance of a 4-star general. Once she controlled birthdays, she controlled calendars. Entire afternoons vanished into balloon procurement, frosting consultations, and deeply unnecessary break room banner debates. While accountants reconciled budgets, Cheryl was at Party City comparing streamers like national security depended on mauve versus teal. She turned supermarket cake runs into off-site operations. Her desk looked abandoned, but technically she was boosting morale, the corporate equivalent of diplomatic immunity. She once stretched one regional manager's farewell cake into a 2-day event involving decorative plates and a slideshow nobody asked for. Cheryl discovered what every office eventually learns. Celebration is productivity's natural predator. She didn't avoid work. She smothered it under buttercream and socially mandatory sheet cake. 19. In 1985, a copier technician in Cleveland named Stu realized he had access to the holiest relic of office avoidance: mysterious machinery. Whenever work piled up, Stu would casually approach the copier, remove one panel, frown like a Cold War engineer, and declare the machine in diagnostic recalibration. Nobody questioned him, because copiers in the 80s were basically cursed refrigerators with paper trauma. Stu spent hours crouched beside machines, occasionally tapping components with a screwdriver for dramatic effect, while co-workers stood helplessly clutching memos like pilgrims awaiting prophecy. He'd emerge smudged with toner, mutter something about feed rollers, and earn universal respect despite often just removing paper clips. One branch manager called him the backbone of office continuity, which is stunning praise for a man hiding from spreadsheets inside Xerox equipment. Stu understood an eternal workplace truth. If people think you can fix the machine they fear, you become untouchable. He didn't repair copiers. He built a shrine to strategic confusion. 20. In 1991, a state office employee in Sacramento named Donna discovered that America's most sacred workplace loophole wasn't sick leave, vacation days, or fake jury duty. It was the training seminar. Donna realized the phrase professional development could excuse a human being from actual responsibility indefinitely if wielded with enough laminated badges. She enrolled in everything: leadership workshops, communication retreats, filing system symposiums, conflict resolution brunches, even a 2-day seminar on effective municipal listening. This woman spent so much time in conference hotels eating dry chicken and collecting tote bags that some co-workers genuinely forgot what her real job was. Whenever deadlines appeared, Donna was mysteriously off-site, enhancing administrative competencies. Her desk became a decorative monument to absence. The brilliance was untouchable. No boss wanted to question self-improvement without sounding anti-growth. She once avoided tax season chaos by attending a seminar called Fax Machine Transition Strategies in a Changing America. Donna didn't just dodge work. She turned Marriott conference rooms into a tax-funded witness protection program. 21. In 1988, a suburban office manager in Connecticut named Howard executed one of the boldest anti-productivity schemes since the invention of golf. He invented a filing system so incomprehensibly complex that only he could understand it. Cabinets were coded by color, season, mood, and what he called document temperament. Blue folders weren't financial, they were proactive adjacent. Red tabs indicated urgency unless paired with yellow stickers, which apparently meant pending philosophical review. Coworkers feared his filing room like archaeologists confronting a cursed tomb. Whenever anyone needed records, Howard sighed deeply, adjusted his tie like a battlefield surgeon, and vanished for hours into rows of cabinets pretending to decode ancient prophecies. In reality, he was reading Sports Illustrated behind mislabeled tax archives, while the office assumed he was preserving civilization. Management couldn't fire him because nobody else understood the labyrinth he'd built. Howard essentially Indiana Jonesed himself into job security. He didn't organize paperwork. He transformed manila folders into a hostage situation. 22. In 2002, a mall electronics employee in Tampa named Ricky discovered that the easiest way to avoid labor in the golden age of DVDs, camcorders, and confused suburban dads was simple: become the tech guy. Ricky intentionally learned just enough nonsense vocabulary: RAM, bandwidth, optical sync, digital migration, to sound like a wizard to anyone over 40 buying a VCR. The moment stocking shelves loomed, Ricky would be urgently assisting a bewildered customer, asking why their universal remote couldn't control a ceiling fan. He stretched basic questions into full cinematic trilogies. Buying a printer cable became a 90-minute consultation involving compatibility charts, speculative future-proofing, and warnings about signal degradation. Managers adored him because sales looked strong. Coworkers despised him because while they unloaded CRT televisions, Ricky stood under fluorescent lights discussing HDMI's evolving frontier like a Silicon Valley prophet trapped in a food court. He didn't avoid work. He hid inside America's fear of technology and charged commission. 23. In 1974, an assembly line worker in Pittsburgh named Earl achieved what can only be described as Mount Rushmore-level laziness by faking illiteracy for 14 straight years. Earl could absolutely read, beautifully in fact. But the moment management introduced written instructions, safety manuals, or policy updates, Earl transformed into a confused frontier orphan confronting hieroglyphics. New machinery protocol? Can't make heads or tails of it. Updated handbook? Wish I could, boss. Benefits paperwork? Suddenly this man looked like a cowboy seeing algebra. Supervisors, assuming compassion, reassigned him from every complicated or unpleasant task requiring reading comprehension. Promotions requiring tests passed him by, which Earl considered not tragedy, but freedom. While coworkers studied manuals and adapted to every industrial innovation from Carter to Reagan, Earl kept doing the same gloriously simple job, untouched by complexity, deadlines, or corporate ambition. Then at his retirement party, after 14 Oscar-worthy years, Earl casually grabbed the microphone and read a 4-page farewell speech with Shakespearean confidence. He didn't just avoid work, he pulled off the blue-collar usual suspects, proving the greatest labor-saving device in American history was apparently selective literacy. Which excuse deserves gold in laziness? Monday allergies, fake illiteracy, or pure bureaucratic genius?